Heather Zykowski, the babe with the power, and coming up next on WAYO LP Rochester is The Sound of Tomorrow, where we're going to be talking about bail reform, we're going to be talking about monkeypox, and we might have even a fun, light, kind of like neat, cool, interesting story about history.
Bow, bow, bow.
But first, Ross, I want to tell you a funny thing that happened today.
Yeah.
So
Bow, bow, bow. I'm just doing it. I'm only here to do air horn noises.
Do the air horns. So,
All
as everybody knows, this is a story about my cat. This is how we're going to start off every show from now on. Story about my cat before we play the theme. So Nigel decided he was going to sleep in today, and naturally I had to go and check on him. So I looked, and he was under the covers, but he had the curl of the end of his tail out and his little back feet. So of course I also took a picture of it.
Sure.
So then I was working in my office when Nigel deigned to get out of bed and come and visit me. And he walked in the office and I said loudly to him, "Hey, I took a picture of your feet and tail and I sold it on the internet for a lot of money." And then I realized I had the office window open. Hi, neighbors. Let's play the theme.
I think they're used to it.
I don't know. I don't know what they're used to.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ross Johnson. Everybody. This is gonna be great. Hey everybody, I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite co-host.
And I'm Heather Zykowski, the babe with the power. You're listening to The Sound of Tomorrow on WAYO LP Rochester. We have a good one in store for you today.
Do we?
No, I don't know. I think we're all over the place.
I am. Oh yeah.
This weekend, Ross. Another little just kind of fun thing that's been going on with me. This Saturday night, like this past weekend, was my high school reunion.
Oh.
And
okay.
I did not go to it, nor did any of the folks that I keep in touch with from high school. You know, I'm still pretty close with several people, and none of us went. But we were like following the pictures and stuff and checking things out, you know, who was there, things like that. And so they have this Google Photo Drive, like the Google Photo page, set up where classmates can contribute pictures. And today I found, and I'll try to remember to make this the image that goes with the show. I found this picture. I have no idea what's going on. It's me and my friends in a field, and we're either dancing or fighting, but I have no idea who took this photo. I have no idea when. And I don't remember this at all. So far, I've only heard back from one friend when I said, you know, "Any clue what's happening in this picture?" She replied, "No." So that's what's been going on with me. I've been combing this 30th, I just said the number, 30th reunion picture site, looking for pictures of myself when I was a teenager.
Wow. You know, I had, so my high school, like I have been to one high school reunion.
Yeah, like the 5-year.
Right. And it was the only
one last year.
Right. It's the only one that's ever been held.
Really?
So, and I probably, like, I enjoyed myself, but that was, and it was the 5-year reunion. And it was sort of, or maybe 10. It was 5 or 10. It was fairly recent. And it was sort of just before, I mean, it wasn't like before social media, but it was like, it was before things got really bad, you know? And
right.
Like now I feel like I don't really like want to talk to most people that I like. Not that I really wanted to talk to most people I went to high school with anyway, because if I did, I would just talk to them. But now I feel like I really like don't know that I care to interact with an awful lot of people I went to high school with. So it's fine.
Yep. I can see that. I truly don't know. I'm not social media friends or followers with a great deal of former classmates of mine, which is fine. Like I said, I am in touch with the people I want to be in touch with from high school. And so I don't really know, because what you start getting into is yep, we all went to the same school. We all kind of grew up going to the same classes. And then you find out, like, wow, they're just a terrible person as an adult.
Yeah.
And by terrible person, I mean terrible person.
Right.
Uh, but I don't even have that scoop enough to know because I don't see what they're posting. I don't even, as much fun as it is to sometimes go poking around on social media, kind of just you remember someone and then you look them up and it's like, what are they doing? What are they up to? I don't even really look people up. I look at some of these pictures that people are posting on the picture site, and I'm very seriously saying things like, I've never seen that person in my entire life. I have no
Y-
idea who that is.
yeah. Even at the even at the, like I said, I think the 5 year
Mm-hmm.
reunion I went to, I had a really the most memorable thing that happened. And again, like I had a perfectly fine time and I saw some people, but I had mentioned to someone who I had been good friends with in high school. I was like, I already have forgotten a lot of people's names.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this literally, I said, like, I'm terrified someone's gonna come walk up to me and demand that I like know their name. And
Yes.
literally it happened.
Oh,
No,
of course.
without exaggeration. Someone literally like demanded that I, because they were, I recognized the person, but I sort of did like a hey, you.
Mm-hmm.
um, and they were, and this person was like, "You don't know my name, do you?" And
Oh
I was like,
boy.
"Ah, ah."
Yeah.
and, and she got really mad and like
Of
stormed off.
course. Of
And the whole
course.
table was laughing because I had just said like this,
Right.
because what were the odds that someone was gonna like demand that I know their name and then freak out about it at a
Right.
high school reunion? Um, so yeah, so that was, but yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't think a lot of, and I know Mike's run into this too. A lot of, I ca- maybe it's just people getting old. Maybe it's, we both went to high school in smallish towns.
Mm-hmm.
But even people who were seemed sort of fine in high school um have gotten bad in many
Mm-hmm.
significant ways. Like very bad in some
Yeah.
cases. And or like either very bad or the sort of, the other either like overtly very bad or sort of the whole thing of like, oh well, I love gay people, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote against, I'm gonna make sure that they don't have any rights whatsoever. But I
Right.
love my gay friends, let's go party, woo. But
Right.
I'm gonna vote to make sure that they have zero rights.
Yep. Yeah. That's the kind of thing. And in a way, I'm glad that I remain ignorant of what my former classmates think about it
Oh, it's
because,
so much better.
right, because it would, I think it's been clearly established that in abstract theory, I wish them all the very best, except maybe the ones who were actively super duper jerks to me, right?
Hmm.
And even those ones, like, there's not a whole lot I'm super salty about from 12 million years ago when I went
Right.
to high
Yeah.
school.
Me neither.
Um, but I think if I knew, like if I looked back at someone that I remembered from math class and saw that they were posting things either like, how dare these gay people demand they get to stay married? Or, I voted for this and that, even though I love my gay friends. Or love the sin or hate the sin, et cetera, et cetera. I think then I would have feelings about it.
Yeah, it
And
just
it
winds
would
up making,
take up more of my emotional bandwidth than I feel the need to give.
it's why I pretty much don't do Facebook. Like occasionally I'll just be like, "Oh, I'll post this picture to Facebook and people can like it or not. I don't really care." Like that's my interaction with Facebook usually. Um because I was running into that with like people I knew where it was like, "Okay, I'm just getting constantly depressed about people." And even people I know and like or thought I liked, and I find out they have really truly odious opinions. I did
Right.
get I did get
Mhm.
I did get an Apollo a weird, not weird. I shouldn't say weird. This was very sweet. A from somebody I went to high school with, who I knew was sort of friends with, good fish. I don't know, like friends. Like not like best friends, but
Mhm.
friends. And I had posted something about some some gay stuff, some gay something about something bad with gay people that was happening with gay people. And he sent me an apology for like, if I ever did anything in high school that made you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and my first reaction was like, oh, that's very sweet. My second reaction was like, if you did, I have no idea. I have not a clue. Not.
Yep.
I was like, I don't. And I responded very nice. It was like, that's very kind. I was like, I don't remember. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't. And I wasn't out in high school anyway, so I don't know that. I don't know. I wasn't.
But when you're not out, still people say horrible things.
Oh, of course. Oh, and
And
I got plenty of that. But yeah, like I don't think from this person. So
right, I think you'd remember if he said something like really egregious,
yeah.
because even not being out yet, I think if something really, really bad had happened or been said in your presence, I
A
think
lot of
maybe
no,
because
because
it
a lot
was
of
just
bad.
like
There was a
that.
lot of stuff. There was a lot. There was a lot of that. So
Yeah,
it's not impossible. Like I didn't have any. Like when this person said this, I didn't have any like negative associations that popped up in my head. Like I didn't
yeah.
have. There was nothing that went like ding, ding, ding. Here's a person. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff like that. Even though, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I guess the bullies knew, long before I did, which I guess, listen to, when bullies tell you who you are, you listen,
Oh,
they know. So sometimes they know more than you think. So, but yeah, I don't know. So I guess the
yeah.
moral of this story is high school friends, stay away from them. Not worth it. Terrible.
Yeah, and my high
Just
school
depressing.
friends hit me up on the group text. We have one going.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
the ones I want to hear from.
Yeah. I have a lot of, college friends that I stay in touch with.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice, and it's nice too. I'm not always the best at like keeping in touch with people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always go out of my way like I should. Like I think that's a bad thing that I don't do that. I don't, it's not it's not a cute quality of mine. But and part of it's, I don't know, part of it's laziness, part of it's, I think there's a little bit of like a, I think I have a little bit of like oh, they don't want to hear from me, that kind of
They
thing.
do though.
Yeah, I don't know. If they do or they don't, I don't care. It's fine. I got my own stuff going on. I'm also lazy, so it's either way it works out. But so that's good. That's all you need. But it's nice. It's nice. It is nice to, you know, old friends, silver or whatever, or new friends are silver and old friends are gold.
Yes.
And you can
You can melt them all down.
melt them, get the off the mold is how that goes, I think.
In Girl Scouts, we learned to make new friends, but keep the old one as silver and the other gold. Yeah.
I don't think Girl
Scouts
Scouts made
it
I don't
as
think
a round.
I don't think Girl Scouts made that up, but yeah.
I don't think so. I think it probably predated it, but we had the little song.
Sure.
The song that is still taking up room in my brain where much more valuable things ought to be.
But what? I mean,
That along with rock. I don't know, like my social security number, I suppose.
Right. You should
I
learn
should
that.
memorize that one of these days.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. All right. Well, yeah, I'd get rid of the song then.
Yeah,
I guess
wish
if those are the
could.
choices.
It's ingrained.
Heather,
Nothing I can do. Ross,
can we talk about bail reform for a minute?
I would love to hear about bail reform. It's
Let's
something I'm interested in, but honestly, I have a lot more feelings than facts. So
Right.
when you said you had this to discuss, I was truly very excited, and I think I'm going to learn something.
Well, I hope so. I hope you're not too disappointed here, because I don't want to. There's a lot to unpack about bail reform, and there's stuff that I know, and there's more stuff that I don't know, as with everything. So I don't feel qualified to go into great detail talking about bail reform in general. But
Okay.
there's sort of there are a couple of like there's a recent instance that I think I want to talk about, because I think it speaks to a lot of things around bail reform and around our. I think it just, this story that happened very recently speaks to a lot of stuff we talk about on this show all the time. And let me preface this by, so here's what I know about, here's what I know about bail from my brief time in criminal justice in school. Um, so the thing, so with bail reform, the thing that people who are against any kind of bail reform don't get, or they don't care about, is that, so bail is not intended as a punishment.
Hmm.
Like legally, constitutionally, principally, it's not intended as a punishment. It's not intended as a it's not intended as a way to keep people in jail. Um, it's, I mean, the sole goal of bail is to make sure that somebody's going to come back for their trial.
Hmm.
And if a judge thinks they're like definitely not going to come back for their trial, then they won't set bail, because that's
Hmm.
the whole point of that. If there's a, and the amounts that people get charged are supposed to be based on like what might hurt, an amount of money that might hurt someone to lose, so you're setting aside an amount of money that, like, oh, if you didn't show up for the trial, this would hurt you to lose, you're going to get back.
Hmm.
But then we've developed this whole bail bond industry, so people are spending,
Sure.
people are getting bail amounts. And it's like, like any other industry in this country where we have middle people,
Right.
insurance, anything else, where suddenly, so that leads to, so a judge knows that a person can get a loan easily for the
Hmm.
bail. The loan has a high interest rate, but
Right.
the judge knows that the person can still get the money. So the bail amount goes up. The person has to borrow more money. They have to pay more interest. Or again, we've had plenty of instances all the time where it's just getting used to keep people in jail without
Right.
charges, without any other reason. They're getting amounts of bail that don't have anything to do with that. There's no way they can pay. There's no way they can
Yep.
borrow. They don't have the means to get. So it's used to, oh, we can't charge you with anything. Or
Right.
we're charging you with something. We can't, we really don't have a basis for holding you in jail.
Hmm.
But we're going to use this thing. So, of course, when you try to reform that, then people are like, oh, they're opening up all the jail doors and blah, 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 which is not exactly how it works. And actually, this is all prefacing, sorry, before the story I get into, but so interestingly, I guess preliminary data, and this is very preliminary because a lot of these bail reform efforts are brand new. What they're finding, what one of the big theories with bail reform is, there are sort of the traditional Law and Order people who believe that recidivism is based on you weren't hard enough on the person.
Oh, all right.
And then there are people who believe that it's more complicated than that. So,
Well,
you
I
know,
don't know.
slightly more
I mean,
complicated than that. So what they found with some of the preliminary data that we're seeing with the bail reform is that it's actually been very successful in recidivism rates because, and this was the theory, and it seems to be borne out in
hmm.
fact, is like, you put someone in jail when
Right.
they might not even wind up getting convicted of anything. This isn't even someone you can call a criminal at this point. This is just a person charged with a crime.
So, for
So,
example, a person was arrested for shoplifting. They may or may not have shoplifted,
or whatever,
but
even
they've been
murder. I mean, they
arrested
may
for
or may
that.
not have murdered, although a murder is probably going to wind up, they're probably not going to get bail.
That's
But
why I was saying
so
something like
your example is better. Okay.
shoplifting. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you're
I
right.
wanted
Let's
to
go.
go with something where probably they're not going to go out and like kill a bunch of people.
Yeah. So let's go with your example. Or, yeah, let's use shoplifting. Sure. That's a good one. So you, so you're in jail. You can't, they want to keep you in jail because they're tough on crime or whatever.
Hmm.
So you're stuck in jail. You're charged with a crime. You haven't been convicted of a crime. You're technically innocent because you haven't
Right.
been convicted of anything. But how many people how many people that are arrested for especially sort of lower end crimes like that, you know, a lot of people can't miss a day of work, much less
Yeah.
2 days, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, whatever.
Hmm.
And especially if your excuse is like, oh, I can't come to work because I'm in jail, like
Right.
that is a really easy way to lose your job.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's in a lot of ways, that's an easy way to lose your family. Or,
Right.
you're not making, or you're, if you can't work for a couple weeks, suddenly there, a lot of people, there goes the rent, there goes the mortgage,
Mhm,
or
mhm,
whatever it is.
mhm.
So it's this, it causes this cascade, that simple thing causes this cascade of problems for people, which strangely enough does not help them
Right.
um you know not be involved in crime later, because you're increasing the person, again, whether the person did the shoplifting, whether they didn't, whether they wind up getting convicted of that or not, it doesn't matter. Say they do get convicted, say they were a shoplifter, oh no, terrible. Well, they've been convicted, uh and done whatever they needed to do, but again, they've had this major interruption in their life that
Mhm.
didn't necessarily need to happen,
Right.
and suddenly now they're desperate on top of everything else. So what you what again, what the theory with one of the big theories with bail reform, and one of the things that seems to be happening, is that by not putting people in those situations as much, um people are not suffering the same effects, and they are not either going back to or getting initially involved in, because they, turns out they weren't guilty of the thing they were in jail for anyway. They're not getting back into crime or starting into crime, because suddenly, like, oh, now I do need money. now I do have to like now I do have to steal to pay my bills or whatever.
Well, and I
Okay,
was
so
thinking about that with the bail bonds too, because as far as I understand, those are completely predatory interest rates. So
yeah.
once you get in the situation where you've had to go to a bail bonds person, you owe more than you can probably ever pay back unless you win the lottery or something.
Yeah. So, and again, there's a lot to, what bail reform is and blah blah blah, which I
Right.
I
Yeah.
know a little about, but I don't feel qualified to speak on all the details of that. But that's the general idea. So there was an instance you might have heard about in the news recently. So this was local, a gubernatorial candidate, and this story just speaks to so much stuff. I just had to bring it up. So this gubernatorial candidate, Republican candidate for governor, Lee Zeldin, he was, I don't know if you saw this in the news, he was attacked at a speech. Um, I don't want to characterize. I mean, I
Characterize
don't
the
know.
attacker.
Well, I don't want to characterize the attack, because I mean, like, I was seeing stuff that was very dramatic, like, oh my God, there was a violent assault on this gubernatorial candidate. I, not being there, just looking at it on camera, what wound up happening was a person, watching the video, the person sort of moved very slowly, and they had a keychain, but one of those keychains that like have the little like
Oh, the
pointy
pointies?
things on them, so you can like, if you need to,
Yeah.
and was sort of aiming those in the general direction of the candidate. So I
The attacker was also a high school schoolmate of a friend of ours.
oh, well, that's very interesting.
Yes. So anybody who also follows that friend on social media knows who the friend is, but I will not say who it is here.
Seemed to be, I mean, I don't know anything about I don't know much about the person, and it's not relevant. Seemed to be a troubled person. Maybe this is a violent person. I don't, normally seemed, apparently was very disoriented. Didn't seem to quite know why he was there. um, didn't, was it actually an attack or not? I guess that's for the courts to decide, and we'll see. But anyway, so that's the general gist of what happened. So the person was, so this happened, and again, the initial thing, particularly from the candidate, was very like, this was a violent assault, blah blah blah. And again, how do you feel in that moment? So I don't want to judge that too much, but from the video and from the details, it seemed like maybe a little less than that.
Okay.
Maybe a little less dramatic than that. But anyway, so I guess the person was released relatively quickly. The person was released with a relatively, relatively low amount of bail. So the candidate who's against bail reform kicked into overdrive with this. So this became the major talking point. There are multiple. You've seen multiple articles from multiple news sources about how this is an example of what bail reform has done, and allowing people to blah 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 and all this stuff, blah blah blah. So you can imagine. I mean, I had some. Let me see. I had some headlines. Burr, 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 burr. GOP assails New York bail laws after suspect in Zeldin attack is released. Anyway, I've got them in here, but they're sort of lost. But that's all right.
Okay,
So
wait. For my own clarification, I don't know if this will help the listeners at all. So, what I understood from seeing, because I saw some like social media flutter about this, that's all I know. I was under the impression that the person who was the purported attacker had been arrested for something, was let out with no bail very quickly. And that's why people were like, look at that. And then he attacked again.
no,
Oh,
no, this was the first.
so it's not even related.
Right.
Like
Well,
there was a purported attack, and then the person was taken into custody, released quickly without bail, and as far as we know, has not attacked again.
yeah, and I don't know if it was without bail or a low bail, and I've not been able to find that. Part of the reason why this was interesting is the reporting on this is like terrible from
Well, that's
everywhere,
why.
from
I
like the
mean,
New
look
York
at
Times.
like, and I saw headlines, I saw people commenting. Truly, I thought what they were trying to say was like, look, this is why we can't have bail reform. This guy just got out with no bail, came right here and tried to attack someone.
No, no. So the no. So
See?
there. So, but here it gets even more interesting. So this is I've got a few sources that I'm looking at here. Uh, Dr. Rebecca Kavanaugh is a Brooklyn, Brooklyn. I wrote Brooklyn and I just stopped there.
Is
She's
it
a Brooklyn.
Brooklyn?
I think she's a public defender. I might be lying about that though. But anyway, she had some commentary on this. There's a civil rights attorney and public defender based in LA named Scott Heckinger, and then a bunch of articles. So New York Times, CNN, blah blah blah, all the the usual suspects.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets even more interesting than that. So yes, you've seen all that stuff of like this is terrible, blah blah blah. This is why we can't have bail reform. So
Right.
it, fascinatingly, the charging district attorney is the Monroe County District Attorney, a woman named Sandra Durley. We might have heard of in the area. You might have heard of. She's the Monroe County District Attorney. She's she's Republican. She's a very anti-bail reform, very law and order. One of the sort of known for has made sort of a campaign, has made sort of a has made sort of an issue of all this stuff. Um, charged charged the gentleman. This is David Jacobanis is the alleged attacker. Charged him with attempted assault in the second degree, which is a lot of words for not a very it's all of the legal analysis, and I was seeing, and I think I agree with it from what I know. This is a much lesser crime than you would normally charge someone with in this circumstance. Not necessarily that it's a lesser crime than is deserved, but for all sorts of reasons, even sort of liberal, progressive, quote unquote, as much as they are out there, district attorneys, you're going to go higher because
Mm-hmm.
it gives you leverage. It gives you, makes you seem tougher on the crime, especially with something public like this. Um, people found it immediately very odd that
Okay.
this person would have been this person, because I mean, regardless of the exact specific circumstances, this person sort of ran up on stage and attempted to assault. Who knows? Stab, whatever he was trying to do. I don't know that it seemed like he was trying to do anything dramatic, so I'm not saying that. I think that's unclear and seems, I think it's a little over dramatized. The idea that this was like a murder attempt,
Mm-hmm.
but so Sandra Durley is Lee Zeldin's campaign co-chair. So let me just and the reporting on this was all like the New York Times article mentions that in like the 23rd paragraph.
Oh my
A lot of
gosh.
other articles don't mention it at all. So just to recap that, because there's a lot there. So this man goes up on stage, attempts to assault the gubernatorial candidate. The district attorney, who is the super duper Law and Order, I'm so tough on crime district attorney, who is also the co-chair for Lee Zeldin, um, charges him with basically the least crime possible.
Huh.
If she had charged him with anything higher, he would have been ineligible for bail and would not have been able to be released. So she if she had ticked it up one notch, which she could have done, I mean, there's nothing that would have stopped her from doing so. This person would
Well,
have been ineligible for bail.
and it sounds like
Instead, she
most commonly it would have been a
yes,
higher crime.
absolutely, absolutely. At least
Huh.
again, not necessarily what would have been deserved, but what would have been charged. Because as we
Right.
know in our justice system, it's not always about what's deserved. Um, so the person so charges him with a lesser crime so that he is eligible to be released by the laws that she presumably knows, and then the candidate goes on to use this as a talking point for the past week and change about how he should be governor because he can stop the crime, and only he can stop these district attorneys who are going to just let criminals go, blah blah blah. Not talking about Senator Durley, his campaign co-chair, who is the person who did this. So the whole thing is just so, I mean, I think it it speaks to our media. It speaks to also why we can't do anything in justice reform in this country, because we have this reporting that's like, can you believe this person just got out of jail? When, for all intents and purposes, the Law and Order Republican district
Wow.
attorney let him out of jail. I mean, said like, I could keep him in jail. I mean, really, like the thought process had to have been, I could keep him in jail, but I'm not going to.
Right.
Now, again, would that have been right? I'm not saying that's the case either. Maybe this is exactly what he deserved to be charged with. But it's very fishy. I mean, some
It
people are
is.
trying to make a conspiracy theory out of like, was the guy even like,
I know. I know. I'll admit, little corners of my mind do contemplate
I it's
that
not
potential facet.
it's not a wildly, I mean, in this day and age, it's not a wildly unreasonable question, but I would say I don't have any basis for believing that, but um it definitely, I mean, fishy definitely in the sense of, here's an opportunity that we've jumped on, and we're going to um rely on the media to not ask any questions until, I saw people who were, yeah, and it was really like people who were in law enforcement who started to ask the questions and started to push back on the media coverage and be like, why the person prosecuting this case, which um is a weird conflict of interest anyway. I mean, you would think it would go the other way, right? You'd expect like, oh, my campaign co-chair. What you'd expect to see is like, oh, she's charged him with triple, quadruple murder
Right.
and
Yeah.
death, Um, but it really feels like the opposite, and it feels like an opportunity that fell into this lap. But it's the media coverage as well to not ask the question of like, because it's not a far step, even if you can't get to there's something fishy going on, it's not a far step to go like, hey, isn't it weird that the charging district attorney is doesn't work for the candidate? I mean, she's the campaign co-chair, which is also an ethical violation of the New York District Attorneys Association, of which she was the president. So
Mm.
there's a whole other thing there. Anyway, I'm again, I'm not trying to
Wow.
connect too many dots here, except to say, I mean, a lot of people are trying to connect more dots with this than I think
Mhm.
I am, but I feel like it speaks to so many issues,
Well,
and so many, uh, again, our media coverage, the reasons we can't get anything done because it's so easy to make an issue out of nothing.
well, and there all right, so I think everybody knows I am not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'm also not that bad, right?
Right.
Like, I look at things, I generally kind of understand what's going on with it, and like I said, I didn't dive into this. I didn't do any diligence for it whatsoever, and I didn't tell anybody I would, so don't feel bad about that. But
Right.
the impression I got from the headlines and the tweets and just social media, the static garbage that comes at you if you're on social media at all,
Hmm.
was that this person had been let go with no bail and then went on to commit an attack.
Yeah.
Like that's how so many things were framed. And again, that's I understand now that's not what happened, but what do you bet there are a lot of people who truly truly believe that, and even if you started pointing out all the articles and going like nope, nope, that's not the facts, nope,
Yeah.
nope, they very much believe and will never change their minds that the purported attacker was let out without any bail and then went on to attack again.
Yeah.
And this was the attack, because that was a lot of the spin that I saw.
Yeah. And it's always the spin, and the fact that, again, that most of the articles didn't even mention any of the weirdness of like, why was this person not charged with more? One more time, and I'll just say this one more time. I'm not saying the person
Yeah.
necessarily deserved to be charged with more, but it's unusual, especially from someone like Sandra Dorley. You know, none of the articles even mentioned that. None of the articles even said like, oh, and then he was prosecuted immediately by the candidate's campaign co-chair. The New York Times article mentioned it, like, but you had to read to the bottom before you got to that. So the fact that they're, you know, and the sort of, and again, it's not like I was digging into this. I mean, I saw analysis from smart people who were like, who are in, you know, who are public defenders or in, you know, just criminal justice reform or in law enforcement, who were like, hey, this is weird. This is
Yeah.
very weird. And I think it's hard to get away from the weirdness. And it's just, you see, you know, but we've seen this with the bail reform stuff. And I wanted to look into that a little bit, but I spent so much time digging into this that I got tired. But so,
Mm-hmm.
um, what I've seen, and like I said, I haven't dug into this enough to have concrete numbers that I could pull or sources that I could pull. But what seems to be the case is that, there is a lot of BS around bail reform, as you might
Right.
expect.
Oh, of course.
And there's a lot of, you know, the murder rate in the United States was up last year.
Mm-hmm.
But it was up sort of across the board. Most places have not had bail reform. So, the fact that if you have, you know, if you have states that have done nothing in terms of bail reform and a state that has done something about bail reform and the murder rate is up approximately the same, can you blame bail reform?
Right. Or can you just blame some trend in the US? And there's an article, I don't know if I'm quite smart enough to grasp everything about it, but I did see something, kind of an analysis of what's going on with the crime rates in the US right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I am interested in that because it was one of those that started off pretty well, but it was mysterious too. Like it's not what you think, but it
Yeah.
seemed credible.
Yeah.
So I do want to check that out. Again, I don't know if I'll be reporting back on that next week, but did catch my eye and I found it interesting. And I would think that part of what that article is going to cover is the general rise in the United States. So you can't really say, well, they did this in this one city and look what happened. Yeah, well, what happened was the same thing that happened in every other city.
Right. Yeah. You know, and it's there's just this constant escalation in the United States, even in
Mm-hmm.
my lifetime, of like, oh, we've got to get tougher on crime. Because, and again, whenever we take simple common sense steps like, hey, let's use bail the way it's meant to be used, and not as a way to just put people, not as a way to just make, not as a money making plan,
Right.
which seems very reasonable. Like
Well,
when you put it that way, like, hey, let's not use bail as a way to make money to pay for, you know, because we have so many incarcerated people that we need to pay for.
yes.
um you know, and so let's not do that. And then people are like, how could you? And the fact
Right.
is, there's always going to be stories, you know, we could put everybody in jail who looks funny.
Mm-hmm.
And will crime go down? Probably. You know, when there are 4 people left in the United States that aren't in prison, I guess those 4 people will, you know, they can go to their different corners and be fairly
Yes.
safe. Crime will probably be fairly low at that point. So, you know, everybody will go, look how successful this was. So yeah. Is there that shoplifter who gets out on bail? Are they going to then go rob a house while they're out on bail? It could happen.
It could happen. It
and
could.
and and then you that so that anecdote will turn into,
Of course.
oh, we need to get rid of that politician who supported that because blah, blah, blah. I mean, so, or that person could
Right.
get drunk and drive their car and kill someone. I mean, stuff happens
Stuff
when
does happen.
when
It
normal
does.
people who shouldn't be incarcerated are not incarcerated.
Right.
People do stuff. So is that a reason to lock up everyone in the country, as we've pretty much done at this point? Every
Yeah.
certainly, speaking as a white person who's not in the who's not the biggest target of that, but
Right. Because that's another more insidious thing that uh, people don't want to say. I feel like there's more hand wringing and false flag waving with the bail reform stuff, because I think there is a dimension to, no, we understand that being jailed is a way we get to punish a lot of Black people in our society.
right.
And we don't want Black people in our society to be less punished.
And
And
it's a way we get to exercise our irrational fear of Black people.
that, and also, like you said, destroy lives,
Destroy lives,
break
sure.
up families, make sure that people don't have their jobs that they were working hard at, and all under the flag of virtue and law and order.
Right.
So look how, we're keeping the community so safe. That mom of 3 who may or may not have shoplifted, who's now like lost her job and maybe her kids because she couldn't make the absurd bail, like that's not going to help our community at all.
And it's one of it's it's sort of in lockstep with our idea about guns too. It's like, oh, if we just get a few, we've got 18 guns for every American, but still we have all these gun crimes. If we just get a few more guns, that'll probably be
Yes.
enough to stop all the gun violence. It's the same
Mhm.
thing. It's like, if we just lock up we've got even as crime rapes have gone down in the United States fairly dramatically over the past few decades, we've still got much higher crime rates than an awful lot of other places in
Yes.
the world. And we go, oh, if we just lock up a few more people, that'll probably be enough.
Right.
But
Yeah.
instead we create desperation. We create fear and
Yeah.
desperation, and then it, a lot of, some crimes are because the people are horrible people. An awful lot of crimes are
Mhm.
because an awful lot of people are desperate.
Right. Yep, absolutely. And I mean, there's so much to it. Like every layer you peek under, there's just more and more layers.
Yeah.
I know we were going to talk about maybe history or monkeypox, but you want to hear a conspiracy theory from me?
Sure. Let's hear it.
So I don't know what you're going to make of this, but I found it very interesting. We recently had a vote here in the city of Rochester, where I live, and I am accustomed to going to the same polling station each time I vote.
Okay.
It's close to my house. It's perfectly fine. It's great. This year I got a postcard saying that my polling station had changed. And it wasn't really that much farther away.
Mhm.
It was a longer walk, but at this point in my life, luckily I'm able-bodied and I could do that walk.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, okay, this is fine. And I just figured, like, oh, my old polling station, they must be doing some construction there. It's just not available, so they had to change the venue. So on voting day, I get myself ready to go, and I walk out, and I walk past the place where I always vote, and oh no, it's a polling station.
Huh.
So already I'm like, oh, well, that's strange. I don't know why I don't vote there now, because nothing's changed. I haven't like changed anything legally. I didn't move a few houses down or something.
Yeah.
Like nothing's changed. But so I walk by my old polling station and I'm like, all right. And I get to what I think is my new polling station. And there's no
Turns
one
out it's
there.
a gas station.
Well, it's a school.
Okay.
Which also normal. The other one's a church.
You wandering around school. You wandering around schools after hours? Absolutely, that's
right.
normal.
But the weird thing was nobody was around. And so I walked all across the front of it and I kind of looked down the side a little bit and then I thought maybe I was confused, honestly. So even though I was sure I wasn't, I truly thought maybe I was confused. So I pulled out my phone and I went to like the government site where you look up where do I vote?
Yeah.
And it said to go back to my old polling station. So I turn around to go back to my old polling station, walk up to the little table. The woman pulls out my information. She's like, but you're in the wrong place." And I was like, "I know, but I was just up there and nobody's up there." And then the website said I should come here. And so she was really nice and she said, "Well, let me make a quick phone call. I think you can vote here. I think that's going to be fine." Then the guy next to her starts going like, "No, she's at the wrong polling station. No, she can't vote here. She's at the wrong polling station." So then the lady and I are confused. And I'm already confused because this is weird. So by then, I'm starting to think conspiracy theory because I'm like, are they, and picture me doing those curly quotes with my fingers because I don't know who they is in this situation.
Sure.
But I'm like, are they trying to make it hard for people to vote by making it confusing and changing our polling stations? And then if we show up and they have our information, people start yelling, we can't be there. I was confused and like slightly upset. And it was a very hot day and I'm very delicate. But so then the lady, she's now confused and slightly upset. So I just said to her, like, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go give the other place another check. Maybe I missed something while I was over there. And if not, I'll be back and we'll figure this out. Thanks so much. Have a great day. So I walk back up to the other polling station. I'm like, okay, I guess I need to walk around the school. Start walking around the school. Finally, I see a little sign on a side door, like down a hill in the parking lot. Nothing at street level, nothing at sidewalk level, nothing on the front of the building. Just like little signs down this side door. And then I went in, and that's where I was supposed to vote. But it was so much harder than I'm used to it being in my neighborhood. And it seemed so weird.
So
Do you think I'm just confused?
so the conspiracy is that it was this was the first time it was ever hard for a white lady to vote. And
Well, that's the thing.
we're pretty sure there's a
Do you think this happens a lot? It probably does, right? And now it's just also happened to me.
I don't know. I mean, so like I live in a not urban area. So I don't, and I don't mean like, I don't mean that in, I don't mean anything else. I hate saying urban because
I know.
because I'm
You
always
live
like,
in the suburbs, I live in the city.
yeah. And I'm not like, I don't mean anything by urban other than like you live in the city and
City.
and like people and cities have more, hold on one second. I actually think my dogs are in on the conspiracy because they don't want to let you talk about it.
Right. They tried to silence me. They tried to censor me, Ross.
They did. So I don't know. So again, by urban I just mean like more population.
Right.
And that makes voting more complicated. Like where I am, it's like you go and there are 3 people there and you walk in, walk out and you're done.
But that
You have
is
to go a
the
little
thing.
further,
In
but
in my neighborhood, generally, I walk in, I walk out.
mhm.
Maybe if it's like a really big presidential election and I go right when the polls open, there's a line of 20.
So I will tell you,
So very reasonable.
so what comes to mind immediately?
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably it's the city government trying to make it hard for you to vote.
Okay.
But the option B, I do know for a fact, and I've heard this from even like people locally, like it is not fun anymore to be like a poll worker. People get threatened, they get yelled at, they get screamed at, they get called names, they get told because after the election was stolen, after the most recent presidential election was stolen, now it's assumed that anyone working polls is in on that conspiracy if you're having a bad day. So
Oh.
I've heard this even from like people I kind of know who
Mm-hmm.
volunteer as poll workers. Like it stopped being fun, and as a result, it is harder to get volunteers because it's like you get paid I always like mean to do it, and I've signed up for it before, but then it's always like there's always been a time conflict or something. But So I haven't actually done it. I think you get paid like a little, but not much. But most,
Mm-hmm.
it's you're kind of volunteering. I think you get a little bit of something, but you're kind of volunteering. So it's not where the so I don't know how much that is impacting the efficiency and the you know having you think like having no you think like having your polling place be in the right place where it's listed would not that sort of happens before all that, but I don't know how much that all impacts. I think election work in general has gotten a lot less fun for people, and
Mm-hmm.
as a result there are less people that are doing it. So that is probably screwing up a whole lot of things, which of course is part of the goal.
Right.
Some people are just overwhelmed by the stuff they see on social media that tells them to scream at volunteers who are, you know,
Oh,
plugging in
jeepers
your ballots.
creepers.
But I think for a lot of people, it's we need to, the more we delegitimize the voting system, the more, we can control the outcome. So,
Oh, that is interesting because other thoughts occurred to me in that, like I said, the new polling station is about twice as far away, which the other one is like around the corner. So
mhm,
twice as far isn't that bad. But if I had some issues getting around, that could make the difference between me getting to the polls.
yeah,
And if I didn't have a car or a friend with a car or funds to hire an Uber to take me up there, because it's also up a big hill, which could create a problem
mhm,
for someone who somehow can't get up the big hill, which is common.
yeah.
So all of that was just so interesting. Like, oh, all right, just a little farther away. So if I weren't able to move around, maybe I'd have trouble making it.
Yeah, and I mean, not getting poll workers, I could see them closing a polling place. It's sort of weird that but I mean, it's possible that maybe stuff just got moved around and you wound up in a weird, like
Yeah,
your address got in a weird, got in some
I
kind of
don't
weird
know.
funnel.
I'll be paying attention next card I get because I do get the cards at least, and they say, here's your polling station. Pay attention. It might have changed.
Yeah.
But before that, the only time my polling station changed was when the place was actually under construction where I used to go. And so then it made the most sense in the world. Well, of
Yeah.
course, we can't get in the building that's under construction. They'll send us to a new one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know.
it was strange. And I'm glad that you also think maybe the city was trying to make it difficult for me and most likely a lot of other people. I can't be the only person who had this confusing situation.
Yeah. I, I don't know that the city is trying to make it difficult for white ladies to go vote, but
How I mean, I guess it's probably in some record somewhere.
that you're a problem.
They probably all know that. No, 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 no. That they know like I'm a white lady.
Right.
They have that
Maybe they,
information on me.
right. Right. I mean, I told them. So,
Oh, you called?
yep,
You
I
called
did.
the hotline?
I did. I did.
I don't know what hotline is. Are your friends white? And then you call, you report them.
Report them, turn them in. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
That's
don't
weird.
know. It was weird. I didn't like it.
Well, I'm glad you figured it out.
I know.
Here in
Yeah,
this,
because
here in the suburbs, we don't have voting places you can walk to.
that
So,
seems not great as well.
I mean, stuff's so spread out though. You'd have to have a lot of voting places for not that many people.
I
So,
guess that's true. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense where I live that you would mainly want to walk.
yeah.
There are places to park. If I had to drive to vote, I could park.
Well, it's
That's been a big
denser.
challenge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's so much
denser too, so you
denser.
can have like more. You could put a central location and get more people. Whereas,
Mhm.
you know,
Yep.
if to put something within walking distance in my neighborhood, it's like, oh, now I've got eight. No, now we have a polling place for 8 people.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, because
I'm
a whole lot of
exaggerating
people could
slightly,
make it
but
over. But still, I mean, your houses are a lot more spread out and stuff like that.
I've just realized.
So
I guess we're not going to get to our other topics because we're pretty much out of time.
I know. No, well, when we started talking about when we started floating a few like could it be? There have been
Mhm.
rumors. People have said. I was like, "Oh, let I have a people have said."
Let me before we go, let me throw out real quick. There's a website called justicenotfear.org,
Ooh.
which has a lot of and this is something I came to after, so this is not where I got my information so much on the Lee Zeldin case, but sort of a it's sort of a website that's been set up by people into criminal justice reform and various experts and things to sort of push back on media coverage because of of the sort of over dramatized media coverage about crime that we get in this country. So it's sort of pushing back on some of those narratives. So I didn't get my information on from this, but because I found it later. But it sort of it sort of pushes back on the fear mongering that comes out in a lot of news articles related to anything to do with criminal justice reform. So
Oh, that's nice. We need a lot more of that. The
yeah,
pushing back.
and then I don't know. I guess we're going on to. I guess we're watching Drag Race. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Are you watching All Stars All Stars?
Yes.
Oh, it's so
Stars All
good,
Winner.
isn't it?
It is good. I love that it's so I know we said we were going, but I love that it's I know I complained last season when they weren't voting anybody off, but I love that it's so low stakes. And I sort of
Yes.
love that it's sort of completely I sort of love that like everybody's just happy and it's sort of arbitrary. Like
Yeah.
oh, we've eliminated down to the 4 possible winners, and then the other 4 people, you can also come
I
too. It's
know.
fine. And I sort of am loving it.
I
I'm
love
just
it.
really I mean, if it were not a group of people that were so talented,
Right.
and that we're not going to criticize about anything no matter what, apparently,
Mhm.
it would probably be different
Yeah.
because these are all established people that kind of like are not going to get on your nerves. But
Right.
I'm sort of sad that it's going to be ending because I'm like, I love this, like, it's just watching them sort of hang out and make some fun stuff.
I know.
And all
And
just
then
kind of loving each other.
yeah, and then in Untucked, everybody just sits there going like, "You were fantastic, and
Hmm.
you look gorgeous. When you did your skill, you blew me away. Let's play a game."
Yeah, like
I love it. I
drama-free Drag
love
Race
it.
is surprisingly kind of exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
But and I'm again, I feel like it doesn't matter at all who wins because it's entirely
No, I don't.
arbitrary.
It's so
When Shay was
arbitrary.
at the bottom and then they're like, "Hey, you won. You know what? You're in the top now."
No.
It's
And
like, "Oh,
really no one no one even like people were just happy for her.
yeah, like no, it's fine."
Nobody was
So,
hurt over it.
they could keep
Yeah.
going with this for a while, I think,
It's the
but
kind of world I need for a while, I think. Things
yeah,
are
just
so
like
bad, I just need this gentle, loving, talented place.
yes. So, I'm excited to see who wins, and I was
Yep.
going to say like I have a couple favorites, but I sort of don't care. I just I'm happy for whoever wins.
Yeah.
So,
And speaking of gentle, loving, talented places, stay tuned to WAYO LP Rochester because that sure is one, and I think there's something really good coming up really soon.
bye everybody. We love you.